Hello, mic testing 1 2 3. Mic testing. Are we able to hear? This is Bivin George Burgess presenting to you the Hello students, are you able to hear me? Students, are we able to hear me? Type a yes, type Y if it's for yes. Let's wait for the other people to come in. Beautiful, I can see a lot of yeses, that's great. We'll wait for the others to join in. Can we also mark the centers that we are from? If we can take a quick minute to just say if you're from Hyderabad, Bangalore or from Chennai, that will be good enough. HYD, BLR or CHN. Thank you, Chaitanya. Thank you, Sailesh, Sanyukta, Mehak, Sahana, Teju, Ananya, Andrud, Bhaskar, Ipshit, Naveen, Sanjana, Chaitanya, Shriya. Sandeep, Achut, Shushma, Harini, Vijay, CHN, BLR or HYD would be good enough. If you guys, don't want to keep on typing, I don't want you guys to, you'll be like, what is this guy doing, right? Alright, we have about a minute left, and after which we will start off with the session. The people who wants to join will join with time. But I think we'll stick to our timelines because the session can be a little long, and let's not drag it and make you guys sleep. Thank you, Vidya, Namrata, Vinay, Ashish. Alright, I think we will start off with our budget 2018 session. Right, this will be most helpful for our GK section. Banking, CLAT and Civil Service GS Prelims is the closest exam that is coming up, after which SSC exam is going to also. In each of these sections, we have a lot of questions based on current affairs that have come up, mainly around the time of 2014 or even later, when probably the people realize that static GK doesn't hold any more value, or it holds less value, or the government and the world has revolved around a lot of different changes. We have a lot of the exams, especially CLAT exam if I should take it, and the Civil Service GS exam have gone at least to 90% of the questions being from the current affairs or something related to the news. Even though I have a question in history, it could be from something that is already there in the current affairs along 1 year. Let me make it very clear, guys. For CLAT, I tell my students in Chennai that normally the questions are asked from the previous year, August, September, to the current year. The current year meaning the year in which you write your CLAT, to that year, April and the first week of May. That's how the sessions happen, or the questions actually happen. Sometimes they slightly diverge. Last year they had asked a couple of questions from a little earlier in the year as well. But all said and done, we're looking at a lot of current affairs question. And when I'm talking about budget, guys, we're not going to discuss the spend and the receipts that the government is going to make. We're going to discuss a lot of different areas which the government has covered, be it international or national, and also the government schemes that are up, the kind of statistics that have been provided, right? So this is what we'll be looking at. Shreya, is it still buffering? Or I think you should just refresh if it comes up. Things to note. I have put up the things to note, guys. Very important. One is in case of any technical fault, our tech team will get back to you, so don't have to panic. A couple of times we go through some sort of technical faults. Tech team will help you out, and yep, that's the primary thing. And just because some of the times we have in certain sessions we have people type in a lot of things, so I would suggest we do not divert from the topic in interest of time, and also because there's a lot to cover in the subject, right? And this will be followed by a small test. Please understand, guys, especially in CLAT, they have gone to this crazy thing of asking statistics and numbers. What is the speed of maglev train by which it had broken its own record? Things like that. Numbers is what they've been asking. How many families have been brought out under the Jan Dhan Yojana, under the different schemes that the government has brought in. So what we will look at is the basics of the budget, right? And then we go on to understand what exactly happened in budget 2018, right? So I'll go into the basics now. To start off with, This is the annual financial statement. The budget is a word term by the British Parliament. It is not the actual term. The Constitution states in Article 112. This is important for the CLAT students, for your legal GK also. Annual financial statement is what it is called, and it is the 88th budget presentation. Since the beginning, it's the 88th budget presentation this year, 2018 budget. Please note this, 88th budget presentation of the annual financial statement. And this annual financial statement, guys, is a money bill. Now, just quickly to go to what a money bill is. Now, the money bill is something that is defined in the Constitution, Article 110, which deals with the government's expenditure and receipts in terms of taxes or any other form of revenue that they're collecting. So, is there an actual definition for money bill? Not quite. There have been a couple of things that have been included. But rest assured, a money bill is declared by the Speaker of the Parliament. If you notice, this is why the Aadhaar bill, though it did not contain too many financial items, was considered a money bill. And this cannot be challenged once the Speaker says it in the Parliament. It can be challenged in the Supreme Court, right? That's why you can hear that the Aadhaar is now being challenged in the Supreme Court, right? So the money bill is declared as a money bill or not by the assent of the Speaker and not the President, right? And this money bill, please understand, is presented and discussed in both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, but can be voted on only by the Lok Sabha. It cannot be done by the Rajya Sabha, right? So if you understand this, that is the main reason why you have the budget being presented in the Lok Sabha. Okay, too much of politics if I go into it. It's just that the government would want to pass the budget. Please understand, in the failure of the passing of a money bill, which means in Lok Sabha, if the government, Modi's government, suddenly, I don't know, somebody very fancy in the government says that, you know what, I don't want to pass the money bill, or I don't want to raise my hand. What happens then? We are going in for a no confidence motion, because if the government cannot be trusted with the basic things such as money, which is required to run the parliament and the country, then we are looking at no confidence in the government. So what happens is, when a budget fails to pass, it is considered as a money bill which is failed to pass in the Lok Sabha. The Rajya Sabha again has no say in this. They can discuss and they can send their suggestions to them, but the Lok Sabha can decide whether to incorporate it or not. Right? So if the Lok Sabha or the government in power is not able to bring it up and get it passed by their own people, it means that the government suffers a vote of confidence, in which case a no confidence motion is raised. And if a no confidence motion gets passed, guys, very simple, the government has to resign. We have a hung parliament, right? The government has to resign and the next person has to prove his majority. So please understand, generally the budget is never opposed. It is generally passed, right? So this is presented on the 1st of February. It used to be on the last week of February before. From 2017 onwards, it's presented on the 1st of February. Please note that no, the budget Simbu is not passed on the 1st of April. It is the 1st of February from 2017. From before that, it was in March 1st. That's when the state governments do it, and the central government does it in the last week of the February month, correct? Now there's also a paper budget. Why is it a paper budget? Is because, of course, we don't want what happened to US elections to happen to our place. And please understand, we are a country of hackers and coders and IT professionals. It will take us minutes to hack into the whole thing and get the budget, right? And if you get to know the budget, what happens? A lot of speculation, therefore market rush, and then you have a lot of fluctuation in the stock market, right? So having said that, Uttarakhand is the first state which presented the digital budget. I think they thought it's pretty okay. It was passed as a digital budget, but otherwise we have the paper budget. Now the financial year starts from 1st of April up till 31st of March, right? Does the PM have any say in the preparation of budget? Amazing question, Anubhav. Till Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister, it was vetted finally only by the Finance Minister. So what happens is, they start doing their work from the August of the previous month, and the Revenue Secretary, who is one of the 5 secretaries in the Finance Department, vets it it goes to the chief economic advisor, they also vet it, and finally the finance minister does it. But since Narendra Modi has come into power, they say that he also looks into the budget. So he has a say, or he likes to have a say and a control on whatever is happening inside India, right? So there you go. Having said that, let's go to the next set of basics. Please understand what else is there in the budget. Very, very interesting stuff, guys. I don't think you know this interesting part. It's all the boring stuff that we listen on TV. Okay, now let's go to the interesting part. Preceded by an economic survey. So first thing is, it is preceded by an economic survey of India presented on the 30th or 31st of January, right? 1 day or 2 days before the budget is presented. Now this is presented by whom? It is by the Chief Economic Advisor Arvind Subramaniam, right? It is a money bill. Why is it presented? Solely by the finance minister. Chanda calls in, right? So if it is presented only, it is not passed. When I present a budget, it is just that I'm reading out the whole thing to you, right? It's like saying, if all of the management has pulled out, made the decision to make you guys wear tie on a hot day, why is the principal reading it out? The principal is just a representative of the whole government. So as the finance minister, the proper financial year is April 1st to 31st March, right? You should please take down notes, guys. The PPT will not be shared. I want the notes to be submitted by the end to your respective academies heads, and I will make sure I check all your notes to understand what we have understood. There's no point in taking up the PPT, guys. You guys are not going to read it, trust me, because unless you have understood the whole thing, there is no point. So let's come back quickly. That the economic survey of India is done by the Chief Economic Advisor, right? Chief Economic Advisor does the Indian Economic Survey. What does it mean? It is a very simple annual survey which says what has India done in the past year in terms of GDP, in terms of fiscal deficit, which we will discuss later, in terms of, the schemes that have been provided, what is the implementation, what are the issues that the government has faced. All these details will give an actual annual report of the total thing, right? So now you understand from there, you can connect the economic survey to the budget, right? Because you will then be able to understand what are people actually wanting, what is the actual problem of the country. So economic survey shows you what developments have been made and where do we lack, right? FDI is a part of it. Yes, the budget session might not contain all of it, guys. When I take a session general in Indian economy, which runs for about 8 hours, that's when we cover every aspect of it. Depending on how the session goes, we will definitely do the session on Indian economy, explicitly FDI, FPI, all these things. Right now, we stick only to the Indian budget of 2018. Having said this, guys, please understand what does the budget consist of. All of these trivia and facts, you have to understand the budget consists of 3 documents. I want all of you to listen very clearly. Take it down and listen. The budget of 2018-19 consists of 1. The plan or the budget for the year starting from April 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2019. April 1st, 2018 to March 1st, 2019. That's the first document that you have. That is the plan they will make. So I'm going to put it here. April 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2019. Right? GDP I will discuss in detail, guys. Let's park the question for the time being. Right? I will tell you how it works. So first document that you have, please listen, guys. Let's take it up after this. April 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2019 is the first thing that they present. The second thing, please understand, when the finance minister presents the budget on Feb 1st, there are 2 more months left. There are 2 more months left, which means whatever they probably asked for last year might all be good, but they have still probably exhausted all the money that they have taken, or they have extra money left, in which case they have to present the revised estimate. They have to present the revised estimate for Feb and March 2018. A revised estimate. So did they not do it last year? Yes, they did it. But who knows what they have spent and what they have not spent. Maybe they spent extra, maybe they did not spend extra. So the revised estimate for February and March of 2018 is what is being presented in lines with the first thing that we discussed, April 2018 to March 31st, 2019 plan. Besides this, the third thing, please understand, the third thing is that they have still not known what did the government present. See, if you look at this year, let's take this year for that matter. Last year they said from April 1st to March 31st of 17 to 18, I required this money. Now they're calling in for a revised estimate for these 2 months. So which means we really do not know in the whole financial year how much of money was spent. So in which case you will have the actual expenditure, and the receipts for the period 2016 to 2017, right? So the actual expenditure. So what are the three things to remember, guys? Please understand, since we have spent the actual amount only right now for 2017 after the revised estimate was over and then April started off, what we do is three things are presented. One, what was the actual expenditure and receipts for the period of 2016 to 17? What was the revised estimate? What is the revised estimate for this year's February and March, because I may have exhausted my money or maybe I have not, right? Next thing is the plan I have for April 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2019. So can you guys help me understand, in the budget of 2019, if there's no election, I will discuss what happens in the event of an election, but if there was no election, what would have Arun Jaitley presented? Can you please key in the answers? Three things you have to tell me. According to this year, if this is the case, what would Arun Jaitley present next year? Go on, I'll wait for the answers. Okay, first thing is budget of which year will he present? What is the plan of which year will he present next year? Plan of which year will he present next year? Let's go for the answers, guys. Okay, receipts of 2017-18, that is actual spending and receipts for 2017-18, perfect. Plan for April 2019 to 2020, absolutely right, amazing. And revised estimate for the middle one, guys, we have missed out the middle one. The revised estimate for, beautiful, February and March of 2019. That makes sense. The plan for April 2000. Yes, I think all of us have got it. Anybody who have not understood, please say a yes or something. Just let us know. All the others, I'm expecting that we have understood what the three things are. The three documents present in the budget of India. Beautifully done, guys. Okay, Manali, the question, why not the expenditure of 17-18 but the one for 16-17 is because in 17-18 there are 2 more months left, Feb and March. Alright, guys, we'll just go once again just because our friends here, some of them just require one more round of this. Listen very carefully. Alright, now the first thing is the three documents presented by the budget of 2018-19 will be, the first one is for the coming April 1st 2018 to March 31st 2019, what is the plan that I have? That is the first one. The second one is, that is, I'm planning out for the next year. What am I going to spend? I can maybe spend more than that, guys. Don't have to worry about that. The government has enough and more money. If not, they will take it from us. Don't worry. On a very lighter note, okay? Don't tell this to anybody in the government. Right. So having said that, first thing is the plan for 2018-19, that is from April 1st of 2018 to March 31st 2019. The next thing is the revised estimate for the remaining 2 months, because he's presenting the budget on February 1st. So now what will he do? I don't still know if I require more money. So then the next thing is that he will present the revised estimate for February and March of 2018, right? And then having said so, What we do next is that we also tell us how much is the actual expenditure I went through and the receipts I got in the year of 2016-17, because by the time 2016-17 was complete, the next budget had already been presented, right? So this is the deal, how it works. Yes, Anna, Elizabeth, financial bill of 2018-19 was presented, right? Yes, the financial bill, the bill or the budget that is presented is the 2018-19, but this was what is included in it. So who all will vet the budget? It goes through a level of secretaries in the finance department, eventually goes to the revenue secretary, right? There are 5 departments in the finance ministry, guys, and the revenue secretary vets it. It goes then for vetting finally by the finance minister of India. And since Modi has taken over, he also makes sure that it goes through his desk. Right? Can we move on, guys? Hemlata has said no. Is it that we have not understood, or can you specify what is the doubt? The implementation of the new bill, guys, we will discuss soon. Don't worry. Is the actual expenditure and so made available for citizens? Yes, it is. They will just tell you the numbers. They're not going to go to the basics and tell how many of them took flights to go where. That's all going to be included. They won't tell you that, but they will tell you in total what is the amount I spent and what is the amount I received. Right? Can we go ahead? Type of Y if we can go ahead. How does the government spend the money on the budget? Anna, we will go to it as we go forward. Let's not get excited, guys. Does the president's assent require or thereof lack of thereof matter? So guys, please understand. The president's assent already comes up when it is a money bill. So it has to, it is with the recommendation of the president that the money bill is presented. Any sort of money bill. So it is deemed that he is already assented for it. Alright, let's move ahead. Right, guys, the details are coming in the following slides. We cannot finish it in quick. This one, it's going to take me some time. So please hold your horses. There's some really interesting stuff that we're going to learn. Okay. So let's combine the railway budget and general budget. Last year, the railway and the general budget got combined. Why was there a separate railway budget? Because of the fancy things that British did, guys. It's very simple. They wanted to develop the railways. The railways was a very extensive project and they wanted to spend a whole lot of money, and they realized that if I put it inside the general budget, what's going to happen? It's going to get diluted and probably I will get very less amount. So what do? Then I simply do this, that I separately create a budget and then I run things according to my will and wish, and that is exactly what we kept on following for the past 70 years or 69 years, after which our superstar Narendra Modi comes in and says that we have to remove all these sorts of things, and then they went in for a combined railway and general budget. President's pocket veto, guys, this goes to a different, this one, president has pocket veto, he can recommend changes. Yes, we will go to the details of it. As far as you should understand, by a money bill, it is with the recommendation of the president that the bill is even presented in the parliament. So without the recommendation, you don't even bring it again. Of course, he will recommend changes, guys. Of course, he can recommend changes, and that is done even before the budget is presented generally. What is the benefit of the combined one? It's very simple. I don't want to allocate extra money for the railways. Too much of money and too much of effort. Too much of paperwork. Railway minister cannot take a holiday, basically. Right? He is unwantedly doing extra work. And why simply give it to a railway minister? What is so specifically important about railways? Nothing is important. Explain it again. Vedashri and Sharan Raja. Explain what topic? Can we just quickly type in what topic? Alright, moving in is the planned and unplanned expenditure has been combined as well. Non-planned and unplanned, non-planned. Guys, can any of you guess quickly, tell me why planned and unplanned expenditure got combined? Guys, extra work in the sense when someone is doing, a finance minister is doing the job and completely presenting a budget, there does not have to be any extra, preference or any extra set of money allocated specifically for the railway budget. Right? Even if it is done, it can be done. It's an extra work. 2 presentations happen, the paperwork happens, you have a lot of separate discussions happening. It is totally unwarranted. Basically, that's the reason. And it does not require as much as development as it required as it required in the history. It has got sufficient money already put in. It only requires that it be modernized or refurbished. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, guys. Planned and unplanned expenditure. Can we quickly guess why they combine it together? Very simple. Because in 2015, what body got removed, guys, and what body was replaced by some other body? Can you quickly type in the answer? Unplanned budget is relief funds. No, guys, that's not what unplanned is. Unplanned and planned has been combined. Contingency fund is what you're talking about. We will discuss that later. Brilliantly done. Niti Aayog replaced Planning Commission. Amazing. So that's what, when a planning commission itself is not there, there's no major plan that is there, right? There's no more 5-year plans, though Modi went in for a 15-year plans and made a Niti Aayog body and all that. That's all there. But having said that, they didn't feel that there should be a planned and unplanned expenditure. They just thought that they should have different sectors in which they should invest instead of having planned and unplanned expenditure. Having said that, guys, please don't confuse unplanned expenditure with contingency funds. For disasters and defense and all that, we have something called as contingency funds, right? So keep that aside. We will talk about it a little later. And GST was not the one that came in 2015. GST was introduced earlier, but it came in 2017, July 1st. Alright, having said that, the question being, what is Niti Aayog? What is the full form of NITI, guys? National Institution for Transforming India. National Institution for Transforming India Aayog. So it's like this. This government has this thing that they just make a particular name and they just elongate it with whatever full form that they can. They first put the short form and then get the long one. They don't generally make the name and then get a short form. It's a little funny that way, but if you look at a lot of these government schemes, they all have in itself the short form as a name and then it gets elongated into a very lengthy explanation. What happens is people who are preparing for CLAT and civil service will suffer. Anyways, coming back, guys, right, let's come back to the next thing called as vote on account or the interim budget. Please understand, vote on account or interim budget. So vote on account or interim budget means, let's say, we will talk about consolidated and contingency fund very soon, Vinay, but let's hold our horses now. Let's look at vote on account or interim budget. So interim budget is generally passed. Yes, we will repeat Niti Aayog soon, Vidya, but let's look at the interim budget. It is passed when a government is going into election. So next year, if you look at it, the election will happen for the central government in the month of April, May. So if the government passes a budget, it is just going to be for 2 months. That is for February and March. There's nothing much to present. So what they do is they just present an interim budget. And the new government that comes in, they are the ones who make the new budget and present it. So only in the election year, you will have this happening. Right? When the new government comes in, they will make their own budget. Just imagine if Modi makes a proper budget and or Arun Jaitley makes it and then the Congress comes back and Rahul Gandhi feels like, no, this is not what I wanted. Or Chidambaram feels like this is not what I wanted, then they're going to have a big mess, correct? So they will wait for the new government to take part or come in power, and then is why what they will do, they will actually bring in the new budget, right? Does the interim play an important role in the budget? See guys, it's very simple. The government has to run for 2 more months. So they need money for it. So they will just have all these expenses which are there. They will not introduce any new schemes which they cannot because it is the election year. They will just have some money to run the show till the election gets over or a couple of months later for that. Right? Why are planned and non-planned or unplanned expenditure included? It's not included, it's been combined. There was a planned expenditure and an unplanned expenditure. When the planning commission was there, we had a 5-year plan. If you remember, we have had the 12th 5-year plan that was there, right? And then it went on. So the 5-year plans kept on. Okay, let's understand that the 5-year plans, once it was stopped, then the government also realized that let's not keep them separate. Let's keep the planned and unplanned expenditure together, right? Having said that, please understand all of us. So the time plan is, guys, they will have it for the next 2 or 3 months. That's it. It's a very, very interim budget that is put, just like the revised estimate that you have for February and March 2018, the one that I mentioned. Something like that will be brought in as an interim budget. Now please understand what you mean by vote on account. Please understand this, guys. Right? The vote on account is very simple. The budget gets presented in February and then the budget session happens where they discuss and vote on the different heads or the different places where they're going to spend money. Now the problem is the government can't wait for every minister to understand, considering that our ministers are all very well educated. It takes a lot of time for them to go through the whole bill. The IAS officers have to go through it and then they have to pass it. Right? So what has to happen is that the government has to function. It needs money. So what will be the deal? The whole deal that happens is very simple. They say that let's take 20% of the total, or let's say this is 1/6, not even 20%, 1/6 of the total budget. Please give it to us already so that we can start off working on things, and the remaining things as and when required we will discuss it. So 1/6 of the budget is already given for, that's a budget required for 2 months. That's the time they'll take to discuss, right? The budget session, it'll open up. Once the budget discussion is over, please understand the parliament has 3 sessions: the budget session, the monsoon session, and the winter session, right? And the budget session, obviously you understand, opens up towards the end of January, February, goes up till May, and then June, July, August, September is your monsoon session, and then following which you have your shorter session, which is October, November, December, which is the winter session. After the election, the interim budget gets done by then, bete, because you know by then the government will have finished spending. It's not like the government does not know how to spend money, no? Planning Commission can be brought back, yes, if Congress comes back into power, because it is an executive body. Niti Aayog and Planning Commission are executive bodies which is solely at the behest of the Prime Minister. So as long as somebody wants to come back and bring down Niti Aayog and Planning Commission are almost the same thing. So they can bring back Planning Commission probably because it was introduced by Nehru, right? The whole thing might come back maybe if Congress comes into power. I'm not sure about it. It can be brought back, but at the behest of the Prime Minister. Having said that, guys, let's move on. Vote on account. Have you all understood? Have all of us understood vote on account? Yes, Raghu. The budget will be covered, but the problem is our government keeps on spending. No, it's never that the government has more money. The government always spends more than it has or gets. So then what happens is it always requires a revised estimate. The 3 sessions, Anna, are monsoon session, budget session, monsoon session, and the winter session. Let's move on to the next one, guys. Certain doubts that we have, we can also keep to the end of the session, or you guys can contact me even after the session is over. We will clear off the doubts. We'll just move on, guys, because we have well past to finish a lot of topics. Right, let's go to the topics that are there. Please understand, guys, the next thing that we have is to understand the basics of what is a revenue account, what is revenue receipts, what is revenue expenditure, capital account, capital receipts, capital expenditures. Please understand what are the top things to be put up. Now, revenue account, let me take a very simple example and tell this to you guys. Right, I'll come back to vote on account once we finish this basics, guys. Look at this at revenue account. Revenue account is like this. Let's say you're working for a salary, right? When you work for a salary, what is going to happen? You're earning money because you're putting in 8 or 10 hours of work, right? So unless when you stop working, you don't get any money. So revenue receipts are when you do some sort of activity and get money for it. That's the simplest definition I can give you for revenue receipts. Revenue expenditure means the same way when you spend money on something and you have not bought anything. For example, let me explain this to you. Let's say you have some money, so you went and built a 10-story building. So now what you have done is you have actually created an asset with your money, right? So that will become actually capital expenditure. You see the one below this? Capital expenditure means what? When I spend money, I also create assets with it, right? In the meanwhile, let's say capital receipts. Let me explain. I think capital account I'll explain first. Revenue account we'll go to later. So one thing is a 27-year-old boy, he goes and invests his money and buys a flat. It is a capital expenditure because when in the expenditure, he ends up making money or he ends up creating an asset, right? What is a capital receipt? Let's say from this particular flat that he's bought, he's getting rent. So if he's getting rent means he's not doing any work. It is a flat which is being given out for rent and he's getting money. So if you sit simply and you get money, it is because of your asset and not because of you. So that is a capital receipt, which means from your assets, if you're getting money, it's called a capital receipt. From your assets, if you're spending on an asset, it is called as capital expenditure. Now, let me take a better funny example for you guys to understand revenue account, right? Revenue receipts is you get a job, you earn money because you go to work and earn your salary every month. Now, let's say you take this money and instead of buying a flat like our 27-year-old boy did, what you will do is you will take your girlfriend out to dinner. What will happen? Have you bought any asset? No, you will just smile at her. She will smile at you. We will all be happy. You will smile, and at the end of the day, what happens? No asset is created. Therefore, revenue expenditure is the expenditure that you make which does not create any assets. If I take it for the government of India, imagine they are paying salaries to people. It's a revenue expenditure. I'm not creating assets because of it. It's not like I'm buying the person and keeping him hanging there, right? But if the same government takes that money and builds 3 buildings and it gets rent out of it, that is called as a capital expenditure. Now revenue. Hello, are we able to hear it, guys? Are we on? Can we quickly say a yes now? Can we quickly say a yes now if we have got it? Is the stream live now, guys? Are we able to hear it? Quickly type in a Y or a S if it is fine. Beautiful, beautiful. So that's it. I think we are good with that. Let's come quickly, guys. Let's continue again. All right, let's coming back. Are we back again, guys? Beautiful. All right. So let's come back in saying again that the government, let's say it earns money through taxes. What does it do? It is a revenue receipt because of the work it is doing. Revenue expenditure, it is paying salary to people. It is paying for the expenses of cars, of judges and all that. They are not creating any assets because of it, right? And then if you're looking at capital account in the meanwhile, let's say the government has some money, it goes and builds some bridges and then they take toll from you. So the toll is not generated by the government, it is generated from whom? It is generated from the bridge that you're using. So it is basically a capital receipt. Now the money used to build that bridge will be under capital expenditure. Yes, revenue receipts consist of tax and non-tax receipts. Tax is a major part of it. I'm not saying it is completely only tax. Even the money that you get from different services, if you go to BSNL and if you pay some money for a particular service, that is also coming under revenue receipts because somebody is actually working or providing you a service and you're giving them money, right? A loan waiver, yes, a loan waiver becomes a revenue expenditure because they don't create any assets because of that. They are just helping out people, like, you know, both is a social welfare, all that will come under revenue expenditure. Assets can be created by revenue expenditure, but the moment revenue expenditure will not create assets, guys, please understand, right? Isn't tax expenditure to an individual? Yes, guys, tax expenditure is made by an individual, but please understand, once the individual makes their expense, it goes into the government's account, it becomes a revenue receipt. From there, the government takes the money, it uses to, let's say, provide some sort of loan subsidy and all that, it becomes a revenue expenditure. You're paying tolls for the bridge which is built by the government. Please understand, the government did not build anything. The government just gave it to people to build it. It's just like the 27-year-old boy who paid some big shot builder to make his building flat for him. He did not build anything. Revenue receipts, again, I'll help you understand. The simplest way is to understand is, if you are earning a salary at the end of the month, it's because you're going to work for 30 days. If you sit at home for 30 days, you will not get that money. That's what, if you have to do some work or some sort of activity have to be performed, in return for which you get that money. Taxes are revenue receipts because the government provides you service, you use that service, and then you generate some form of revenue for your household, right? And then what happens, that a part of that goes to the government back as a tax. So that is how it becomes a revenue receipt. If the government does not provide you that particular service, or you're not able to go to work, right, what happens, because of which you are not able to get any money, and because of no money you are not able to pay any taxes. If the government takes a loan, it depends on what it uses the loan for. So if it takes a loan and builds a bridge because of it, it becomes a capital expenditure. If it takes a loan to give subsidies to this one, it is called as a revenue expenditure. Gifts and grants received by the government, guys, it is revenue receipts. Please understand, it is revenue receipts, right? Grants received by the government. Now it depends. Is this given for a particular reason? Now, is that money given to make a particular bridge or something? It will be used for capital expenditure. Generally, gifts and all that is coming under revenue receipts because it is not given by any particular asset, right? It is just given by someone. Example for capital receipt is very simple. If you have a particular building or a bridge and a toll is collected for it, it is a bridge which is giving you that your asset is ending up giving you money. It is a capital receipt. Simbu, what part are we not clear with? Quickly, can we help us understand? I'll go back once again. Yes, gifts and revenue receipts are not, you're not working for it, but please understand, you're just getting it as a gift, right? It is not that any asset gave it to you, right? Your capital receipts are coming in the form of grants and all that is very simple. You have not worked for it, at the same time, no asset is giving. It's not like the US government is your, asset that it is giving you money, right? Revenue expenditure comprises of subsidies, yes, fines, penalties, income from print, mint, all these things, guys. Revenue expenditure is what you spend. Don't mix the whole thing, Sandesh. Right? A government job salary comes under which category? For the government, it is a revenue expenditure. Please understand. And if tax is paid from that government salary, it is under the revenue receipt. No, please understand, it's like this. If it's not that the bridge is not providing, bridge is not a human being, right? It's not doing any particular work. It's like you asking me if the flat is providing any sort of isn't the flat being provided as a service? It is not a flat being provided, a bridge being provided as service. It is a particular asset that is creating it. Right, let's just quickly move on, guys. The questions that has to come in, we will discuss right after that. Let's go to the different deficits. Right, please ask me these doubts at the end of the class because I think we will run a little short of time. In interest of the majority of the crowd, let's just move on. Yes, Karthik, Lakshmi, we will discuss this in detail once the session is over. Right, kindly excuse me for this because we are running short of time. Please understand the different deficits. Please understand different deficits. Budget deficit. Please understand, budget deficit is when, let's say you have made a budget. I'm thinking we are on now. We'll be back in 30 seconds. And we are back. We'll just quickly go to that. There you go. And now are we able to all see? Right. So the budget deficit is your total expenditure when it exceeds your receipts. Now please understand, inside budget deficit you have something called as revenue deficit. Right. The revenue deficit is specifically when your revenue expenditure is greater than your revenue receipts. Please understand, revenue expenditure greater than your revenue receipts is when you have a revenue deficit. Also, you have a capital account deficit. I have not mentioned it here. We have a capital account deficit, which is when you spend more than you have. Okay, when you spend more than what you're getting is when you end up having a deficit. Right? So, budget deficit is the total. You may have revenue deficit and capital account deficit inside this budget deficit. Please understand. Right? Now, what's going to happen? A part of my budget deficit, revenue deficit. Budget deficit again is your total expenditure minus your total receipts, when all that you have spent is more than all that you have received. Right? There is no borrowing, guys. We are still talking about what you are supposed to bring in. Deficit is when your expenditure is more than your receipt. Right? Having said this, guys, revenue deficit is equal to revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. You see that? When expenditure again greater than receipt, you have a deficit. Right? Now, listen very carefully, guys. What happens when you have budget deficit? You go and you borrow. Please understand. When you have a budget deficit, you actually go ahead and you borrow. A receipt is whatever you get, guys. Anything that you get is a receipt. Any salary, any money that you get is called a receipt, and whatever you spend is called an expenditure. Yes, all these deficits are with respect to 1 year. Where do we borrow from? We'll bring it in, guys. Yes, when we talk about total receipts, it includes both revenue and capital receipts. Yes. So once this is done, guys, the fiscal deficit comes in. Now, what do you mean by fiscal deficit? The moment I have a budget deficit, the government has to get the money from somewhere. When the money comes in from somewhere, the first thing the government does is it used to go and ask the RBI. Arey RBI, bhai, please give me some money. No, I am not able to, finance India. India will go in poverty. Bache log hai. All these things will be there. So now eventually what's going to happen? The banks and RBI, initially RBI used to give money to the government in terms of deficit financing. That is what they called. They tried to print extra currency and all these things. But please understand, the money has to be in a rotational cycle. You can't have extra money being pumped into the system, correct? So what happened is the RBI does not give loans or directly to the bank, to the government. Instead, what happens is it regulates and tells the government, please put out your securities. Securities means what, guys? It is basically your shares, right? Shares and bonds and all these instruments that is there. For people who are from science background and who don't understand, guys, please understand. Please think that Indian government is like a company. The company has shares. The company has debt. What they will do is they will also try and sell these debts, right? They will make it in paper and they will give it to the other marketing people, or in the market they will openly trade it with banks and says that, please guys, RBI does not print its own money. Please understand this. Listen very carefully what I'm saying. Listen very, very carefully. What happens is the government of India is a company. It has got shares. It's got a lot of companies in which it has got shares. It has a lot of government owned companies like your Bharat Electricals, Hindustan Aeronautics, all these things, right? Now what happens is the government debt and the government shares, it puts out into the open market. So now what happens? Then people like me and you, or whoever is rich and a billionaire and who are banks and big companies, they will buy these debts. They will buy these debts or these shares, right? And then they will give the government money. So what has happened? You have actually taken a very fancy loan, right? Now the very important question students ask me is, why would someone buy debts? Absolutely. Why? Because for multiple reasons. Either that you tell that I will please give me 100 rupees. I am in debt now. I will give it back to you as 120. So you give back an interest. Or you keep a share in a government organization or a government company, right? It is also, debt and share is not exactly the same, guys. Share can be of a company. Please understand, share is when the company has to raise money before it invests into something, right? Debt is created when the company has already spent and it requires money to come back to its normal balance sheet balance. For example, let me say I am yet to spend 100 rupees. Then I will give out 100 shares of my company and make 100 rupees and then spend it. The other way is, I already spent 100 bucks. Now I want someone to give me 100 to settle it out. The first one is called as selling of equity or shares. The second one is debts, right? Your bonds are basically, yes, it's a claim. It's not that you basically invest into the company. It is a form of investment. Please understand, normally what we are talking about is investment. Means investment is before a company starts doing business or has money to spend, right? Investment can be two types, guys. One is I give you money ahead of your spending. The other one is I invest into your debts, where I'm giving you money after you have incurred the expense. Right? Now, having said this, let's move to the next one. So once the government has this kind of problem, budget deficit, it will go and ask the open markets and the banks and everyone, please can you give me some money here? I'm going through a lot of debt. So what will happen? Some part of that budget deficit will be given by whom? It will be given by these open market people, right? These banks and big corporates and whoever it is, right? Please understand, this is what happens. Further which, what happens is that they still have got deficit. So please understand that fiscal deficit means budget deficit. Okay, budget deficit means you already have a big amount. From that, a portion is paid off or is invested by these corporates and open markets and companies and banks, but still there will be a sufficient amount which is left. That is called as your fiscal deficit. Meaning, let's say I have budget deficit. The next thing what will happen is that I will go ask around to people. I'll get a part of that from someone and I've still got some amount of deficits left with me. Finally, whatever is the hole that is burnt in the pocket of the government is called as your fiscal deficit. Please understand, fiscal means, fisc means government treasury. That's why we say fiscal deficit means what is the hole burnt in the pocket or the wallet or the treasury of the government. Are we able to understand all this, guys? Fiscal means, fisc means government treasury. Anything to do with government treasury is what we are talking about. Budget deficit and fiscal deficit, please be understanding the budget and deficit is a total deficit you have, out of which a part will be paid by open market activities or by a couple of banks or whoever invests in your shares, bonds and securities. After all that, the remaining amount that is left is your fiscal deficit. What do you do with this amount? You have to go and probably borrow from the World Bank or from IMF or from some outside countries or from someone else, right? So whatever amount is initially inside India, whatever people can give you, they'll give you. After which you go ahead and you probably ask the other people outside India or IMF and World Bank, right, for some sort of an assistance. Now this is called as external borrowings. Yes, Are we able to understand this, guys? Fiscal deficit is after the borrowings within the country in the open market, guys. Please understand, it is not after the total borrowing. It is what is left even after they have borrowed. Please understand, just because government has debt, it does not have 100 rupee debt like you and I have. It has a 10,000 crore, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 20 lakh, 24 lakh crores is the kind of the deficit that we are talking about. Right? We will discuss BOP and all in detail, guys. Like I said, this can be done, or all these concepts in terms of what is not mentioned here, we can always look at for a next session on economics. In the meanwhile, let us only talk about the budget here and the topics that we're discussing here, just in the interest of time. Are we able to see it? Prajwal, Sanjana, Vedashri, is it still okay? Please refresh it and check your internet connection. Coming back, after this, please understand, guys, let me say, listen very carefully to what I'm saying. Anna, which part is not understood? I'll just move on quickly, guys. Primary deficit, please understand. Let me say I want 100 rupees to take my girlfriend out. Alright. So once I want 100 rupees, are we able to hear, guys? Are we on it? Yeah. It's going to ask them not to use the internet. Not to use the internet. You stop using the internet. Are we back, guys? I think it is back now. Stop any usage of internet. Just a minute, guys. Give me like a minute. I think it's because it's prime time. I think we are having some difficulty with the Are we good now? Alright, let's quickly come back, guys. So like I'm saying, primary deficit, let's talk about this. Is, let's say I have a total deficit of 10,000 rupees, out of which 2,000 rupees is only to pay interest. Right? Please understand this, that if I have 10,000 rupees of fiscal deficit, out of which maybe 2,000 rupees is only to pay the interest. So actually my deficit is how much? It is only 8,000 rupees. Are we able to hear, guys? Now are we on, back on? Are we able to hear? Now I'm thinking we are good now. Beautiful. Okay. So coming back again, guys, primary deficit is when, let me say I have a total deficit, or I have a debt of 10,000 rupees I have to give you, out of which 2,000 rupees is the deficit that I have. Then obviously if interest is only 2,000 rupees and the fiscal deficit is totally 10,000, I primarily owe you only 8,000 rupees. So the primary deficit is actually your total deficit, that is fiscal deficit, minus what is your interest payment. Right? Interest is actually not your deficit. You are paying extra to the person because he is giving you money. Right? So again, like I'm telling you guys, your budget deficit is the total deficit that you have. A part of that is paid by the markets when you open out your securities and your shares and bonds. And then what happens, guys? The next thing that happens is that we have a fiscal deficit. That is the total expenditure minus the total receipts except whatever you have borrowed. So because of borrowings, a part of your budget deficit gets carried away, but the remaining is still left. That is your fiscal deficit. And fisc means what? Government treasury. And now from there we go to something called as primary deficit. In this fiscal deficit, how much is actually the money that I owe you? Only 8,000. But you want 2,000 rupees interest. So totally if my fiscal deficit is 8,000 plus 2,000 also, my primary deficit is only 8,000 rupees. Budget and primary deficits are not the same. Please understand. Budget deficit is a total deficit that you have. A part of that is paid off by sending out your or giving out your shares and your bonds and securities, government securities. The remaining becomes your fiscal deficit. Out of the fiscal deficit, whatever you minus as interest payments becomes your primary deficit. Primary deficit is because, guys, you should actually understand what does the government actually spend or what does the government actually owe. The interest is, of course, you have to pay it to people, but you have not borrowed it from anyone, isn't it? So it is important to understand what have you actually borrowed. Right? Having said this, let's patiently look at the next one called as effective revenue deficit. Effective revenue deficit is equivalent to revenue deficit. That is, your revenue deficit is what, guys? Revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. Now, in that revenue deficit also, please understand, the government gives some money as gifts and grants to the states, with which these states might make assets. So even though the revenue deficit is, let's say, 10,000 rupees, out of that 5,000 rupees has been given to states. The only other 5,000 is actually my share. So in 2011 budget onward, they started introducing something called as an effective revenue deficit, which is your total revenue deficit of 10,000 minus the 5,000 rupees which has been given as grants to states for creation of capital assets. Is revenue deficit a subset of primary deficit? Yes, partially. You cannot link both of them, see, because a part of your revenue deficit gets paid by the money that people put in from banks and from open market operations, or from when you raise your shares and all that. So out of the revenue deficit and a capital account deficit comes up totally your budget deficit. After a part of that is paid by the people who are interested in your shares and bonds, it becomes your fiscal deficit. From that fiscal deficit, whatever is interest payment, if you subtract, it becomes your primary deficit. Right? So now I am talking about effective revenue deficit. Have you understood? Can we put a yes if you have understood effective revenue deficit? Now please understand, when the government gave it to the state governments, it was grant. Like I told you before also, grants and gifts are revenue expenditures and revenue receipts. What the state chose to do with this is their problem. Right? So if the states put this for generating or creating capital assets, in the state budget it will be shown under capital account expenditure. Budget deficit does not include borrowings, guys. Please understand. I think we have repeated this now. Let's come back after the session and we can probably clear this out one-on-one. Moving on, guys, we're talking about monetized fiscal deficit. This type of fiscal deficit is no more available. It is not encouraged also. So what happens is the government, to get the money that it has spent, there are three ways. One, it borrows from whom? It borrows from people by selling their assets, by selling their securities, by selling their bonds, all these things. Right? The other way is by taking money which is supposedly kept for pensions, provident funds, all these deposits that are there, they can take money from that. The third one is by making RBI pay them. Meaning asking RBI, yeah, please give me some money. Please understand, if the government kind of expenditure that they incur, if they keep asking from the RBI might have to end up printing currency. That's why it is called as monetized fiscal deficit. Alright. Abhishek Roy, effective revenue deficit is an ordinance or an amendment. It is not, it is an introduction that has been put up in the budget. It's not an ordinance. Ordinance is passed by the president. This can be discussed on a separate session when we discuss polity, but this is not an amendment that they brought in. It's just an introduction, one more head that they have featured, that is all. Moving on, guys, the three ways in which the government raises money to fund their deficits is: one, what is it? By asking people around in the market, banks and everyone, to invest in their shares or bonds or securities. The second one is digging into the money that has already been kept aside for something else. And the third thing is something called as, yes, your deficit financing or monetized fiscal deficit, by asking the RBI to give you money, in which case they may have to print more currency. It is not at all safe to do such a thing, because it will increase the flow of money inside the country if the RBI prints more currency. Right? If they keep on printing currency, what's going to happen tomorrow? Everyone will have extra money with them, which means the expenditure of each person will increase, therefore inflation will increase. Yes, guys, treasury bills, securities and bonds is what they're given. Difference between bonds and securities we will discuss in detail, right, when we take a session on finance. Please understand that they sell their financial instruments and then they raise money to fund their deficits. Alright, next, look at this, guys. This is a very clear picture. I'm going to play this on a full screen for you to see what is the amount, the budget size. This is from Bloomberg. Please look at it, guys. This is how the government tells it will earn the money. This is how they say they will spend the money. Budget size is 24.42 lakh crores. This is from Bloomberg, an exclusive depiction that they have made. RBI can't pay money to the government, Anna. Inflation, guys, is very simple. When the price of one packet of bread increases from 20 rupees to 100 rupees, it becomes inflation. Consistently, if the price is increasing for goods, it is because people have the money to spend and people will give any amount of money to get a particular good. It leads to inflation. It's on a full screen, guys. As of my system, it is on a full screen. Please refresh to see the full screen. No, budget is not industry specific. The budget is, taxes are collected together and the money is spent as divided as a total. It has nothing to do with a particular department. Alright, are we able to understand? This, I'll send it to you guys, this picture. Let's move to the next one. Are we able to see this? Deficit trends. For you to understand, please look at it, guys. The government in 2017-18, please look at the header saying 2017-18. It says BE. BE means budget estimate. Okay, I will send this picture to people who are not able to see it. I'm putting it on full screen. You can just refresh it if you want to. The deficit trends is that the budget estimate said that in 2017-18 the fiscal deficit would be 3.2. But what happened? The fiscal deficit eventually in the revised estimate, if you look at the next one, guys, look at the next column. It says 2017-18 revised estimate. It shows 3.5. The government was not able to match up with what they had said they would do. So from 3.2, what they had promised, they touched 3.5. Okay, 1 second guys, because the picture is not clear. I don't have the PPT with me in terms to give it to the out in the group. I'll give it to you right after. Okay, just write it down guys. I'll send the PPT, the pictures to you at least. Right, just write it down now. The budget estimate for fiscal deficit was 3.2, but the government was not able to keep up to the fiscal deficit. I have pressed F5 and it is on full screen for me. I'll do it once again. Refresh now and see guys. Can we refresh now quickly? Just refresh it and see. Alright, for these 2 slides guys, just let's do one thing. Let's just move on. It's okay. Right, so the budget deficit, like I said, the fiscal deficit is supposed to be 3.2, but they were not able to match up and make it 3.2. They actually had more money. They are supposed to reduce the fiscal deficit, isn't it? Any government is supposed to reduce the fiscal deficit, but what happened is they were not able to reduce it, so it became 3.5. Just take it down guys, it's okay. Leave the slide, take it down as numbers. I will send you the pictures, but take it down. 2017-18, the budget estimate by Arun Jaitley was that 3.2 would be the fiscal deficit, but it ended up in the revised estimate to be 3.5. Right, now this year in the budget estimate they have said that we are going to 3.3. Next year we will come to know how much of that have they been able to keep. So what is your budget fiscal deficit? It is 3.5, right? The projection for next year is 3.3. Let's see what happens. So the fiscal deficit for India as of now is 3.5. Right, that's the only important thing that we have guys. This picture I will send it to you guys, don't worry. These 2 pictures will be sent to you guys. Just take it down as of now. The different graphs given us on the top we have fiscal deficit, below we have revenue deficit, and below that we have primary deficit. I will send the picture to you guys. Let's move to the next slide guys. Let's move to the budget now. Right, in the budget, let us look at what has the government brought in with respect to banking and non-banking financial companies. Okay, give me an example of non-banking financial companies guys. These are your Cholamandalam Finance, Muthoot Finance, your all chitty companies. All these are your non-banking financial companies. Please understand that. And banks and NBFCs are generally regulated by the RBI. Banks and NBFCs are generally regulated by the RBI. But NBFCs don't have to have a particular deposit or anything. Superb. Yes. Yes, Manappuram Gold Loan, correct. Absolutely. Good job guys. So these are in non-banking financial companies. Now the first thing that they've said is RBI will to have uncollateralized deposit facility to absorb excess liquidity. Don't take off these words guys, please listen. Sahana, please refresh. Right, so what are they saying? RBI will make sure that, let's say in the event of a demonetization, are you guys able to see the slide guys? Quickly give me a yes if are you able to see the slide. How many of you are able to see the slide? What about now guys? Are we good? Are we able to see? Brilliant. Okay, so now NBFC is non-banking financial companies. Right? So the RBI will make sure that, let's say money comes into the system. If money comes into the system in huge excess, for example during demonetization, what happened is suddenly all the banks were getting a lot of the old notes. A lot of people want to deposit their money in the banks. So now what happens? Without any collateral, tons of money is coming in. So the bank will not be allowed to keep that money with them. Liquidity means the amount of liquid cash. That means in terms of currency that you're keeping with you. If you're having 10,000 rupees in cash, I'm going to say you have liquid money with you. Non-banking means they do not follow any regulations of the banks, right? They don't have to deposit a corpus in the RBI. All these kinds of things are there when you're looking at a non-banking financial company, and they do not deal anything with deposit and ATM facility. None of these sorts are there. For example, it's not like you can have a checkbook and go and pay a check and then get your stuff. None of these banking transactions will happen. Only that you deposit your money into some sort of an investment fund and get the money back. SLR and CRR we will discuss, right? But in the first thing I want you to understand is, if excess money comes into the bank, the RBI wants it to park these extra money in the RBI. Don't keep the money with you. The opposite of liquid money is not digital money, guys. It is the money that is there in the form of assets. Liquid money is the easiest to use. And if you have invested into assets, let's say you have bought a land or if you have bought gold, it is the other form in which currency can be available. That means you have money, you are rich, but it is not in the form of liquid money. Mutual funds has got nothing to do with NBFC, guys. Mutual funds is an instrument, an investment instrument or investment option that is there for people who have money. NBFCs generally have such kind of investment options. Mutual fund is not a particular type of company, it is a particular type of financial instrument. Financial instrument means an investment option that you have to put your money into. Shares are assets, guys. As long as you hold shares, what happens? They are always convertible into money, but they are not actually money. So holding the shares of a company is actually holding assets. Plastic money is your credit card and your ATM card. Right? Coming back again, uncollateralized means, collateral means to give some sort of a guarantee. Right? So if you are telling some sort of a guarantee and someone is depositing a lot of money, that money has to be parked in RBI. Please understand, why does the government want people to park money in the RBI? Because our banks have this fancy habit of giving money to Nirav Modi and to Vijay Mallya and to this Mallya, that Mallya, random people. At the end of the day, none of the banks have any money and they have taken someone else's money and they've given it to someone else. What happens? Nirav Modi goes to USA, Vijay Mallya goes to UK, and India and Indian banks are going under debt. And then no money to fund people, and then what happens? Eventually what happens is that people have to pay more taxes because there is no money in the banks, and the money in the banks has to be given by the government. SLR and CRR we will discuss briefly, guys. Just put it towards the end of the class. I will discuss what SLR, CRR and banks working is. But let's look at this, guys. Look at this. 80,000 crores is on public sector bank recapitalization. The particular scheme was called as Indradhanush Reloaded. Why? Very simple. People like Vijay Mallya, people like Nirav Modi took the money from the banks. But whose money is it? Is it their money? It is not. It is money deposited by people like you and me. So eventually what happens? When you and me go to the bank and ask, Acha bhai, give me my money, I want to buy a car for my wife. Suddenly what happens? Acha, no money, your wife's car's money is being taken by Vijay Mallya. So imagine when people somehow come back to get their money, Kingfisher is dancing over there. That's all that happens, correct? So all the banks eventually lost out their money, and that's when Raghuram Rajan's time in around 2013-14, they realized that lot of banks are undergoing bad loans. Bad loans means what, guys? People have taken money from you. They are not only not paying you interest, they are not even paying you the principal. And that money has gone to the tune of thousands and lakhs of crores. Recapitalization means putting more money into it. Recapitalization means putting more money rather than what was already there. So let's say Jason, Dharnesh and Raghav have put money into the banks, 300 rupees. If the bank has now wasted that 300 rupees, what happens is that eventually someone else has to put 300 rupees. Please understand, bank ka DGM, AGM, bank ka owner will not put that money. Right? So what has to happen now? Now the government has to come back and fund these banks. Anna, please understand that the bank does not go bankrupt. Even before that, they try to recapitalize and help them. If a bank goes bankrupt, please understand it will cause a big fury among people, insecurity, speculation, and therefore the stock markets will crash. Please understand. Because of fear, what will happen is people will all start pulling out their money and eventually the banks will not have any money with them. So before that kind of event sets in, what the government does is it tries to make sure that the banks does not have too much money to spend. PSB is public sector banks, government banks or government owned partially or fully owned banks. PSB is public sector banks. How about a merger? A merger is not very easy, guys. Please understand, it's not like as how we say two companies have to merge together and all. It's not a very easy job. So rather the government tries to take all the easy steps, tries to fund as much as they can, and when they cannot is when they merge it together. And even if they merge it together, please understand, the debt is still the debt. You have to still pay the person who deposited the money whatever they have deposited. You cannot say that, you know what, we've got merged together so we have got nothing with us. Because of RBI fixing, RBI has just decided to fix here. Nirav Modi and Mallya have happened in 2009, 7, 11 and all that. No? Because of them only this is happening. RBI will not print currency, guys. Please understand, RBI's printing of the currency is dependent on something called as their forex reserves. For example, if you have to print 100 crores worth of Indian rupees, you have to have an equivalent amount of forex, or earlier it was gold. You should have that much amount of gold or forex, that means dollars, deposited in the World Bank. If not, you cannot print extra currency. You can never print extra currency. Please understand. Yaar, Nirav Modi is 2018. He got caught in 2018. He has been stealing since 2000, God knows when. Right. So moving on, guys, for PSB recapitalization, Indra Dhanush, please remember this scheme called Indra Dhanush. It was already introduced earlier, but now they have done it the second time. 80,000 crores they have again pumped into all these government banks. Please understand, Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya very tactfully and very intelligently, they never borrowed from the private banks. They borrowed from the government banks. SBI, IDBI, PNB, all these banks. Okay, what has happened is that these people knew very well that these banks will never go bankrupt because the government needs them. So the government itself will take money from you and I through GST or through whatever it is. They will take extra money from you as taxes and they will pump into the banks for doing what? For recapitalizing these banks. Forex is foreign exchange. That means the amount of dollars that you have in your custody. Foreign exchange or forex. If they get bankrupt, how does it matter to Mallya? Yaar, Mallya doesn't give a shit anyways. Sorry for the language, but Mallya doesn't care. Right? Mallya doesn't care, Nirav Modi doesn't care. But the government and you and I care, no? Tomorrow if you go to SBI, let me say you have an account in SBI. What happens? You go there, there's no money. They're like, where's my money? It's with Mallya in London. He's partying there. Right? So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter to him, but to the government it matters. Moving on, guys, the next one, please understand. Please park the questions which are associated with this but not exactly in the budget for the last session or towards the end, guys. I will clear your doubts personally one-to-one. Right? Write it down on the side as and when you get them. We will discuss it because we are running short of time and we are already we have about 10 more slides to go. Okay. So quickly, with respect to money and currency, please understand post office, NSC, PPF. This is Provident Fund, right? And National Savings Certificate. All these kinds of things will now be more people friendly. Why? Because they want people to invest more money. Yes, Vijayalakshmi, there was 80k, more than 80k crores worth of default. Indradhanush health scheme, and this is different, guys. There are 4 Indradhanush schemes. I think Modi ran out of names to give his schemes. So there are 4 schemes which is Indradhanush. One is with space, one is with vaccination, one is with recapitalization of banks. There's one more which I failed to remember. But all of them are called the same name. So don't confuse both of them. Right, having moved on, blockchain technology. You know what blockchain technology and eventually cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is your Bitcoin. Please understand these are considered as illegal. That means not legal tenders. Government does not accept these as legal tenders, which means you cannot buy and sell anything in India. You can't go to Lifestyle tomorrow and say, please give me Levi's ka jeans, I'll give you 2 Bitcoins. Right? Because the government has not recognized it. People illegally, if they want, they can trade. Generally, Bitcoin is used for trading in the black market for weapons and all these kinds of things. Keeping it with you and all is fine, but the government does not regulate any of this, because of which it is considered as the illegal tender or not a legal tender. So the government will also take action against their use in illegal activities is what they are saying, but it's difficult to track this because it is something called as a cryptocurrency. They aren't illegal, they are not legal. Please understand, not legal. Please understand this. Not legal tenders means, please understand, I'm not saying that it is illegal. It is not legal means it is not accepted by the government, whereas it is used for illegal activities. Right? You can still keep it with you. For example, without license, you cannot keep a gun with you. It is illegal. But trading using Bitcoins is what is illegal. That means if you are buying stuff using Bitcoins, then it is illegal. You want to keep it with you, I don't have a problem. It is not particularly allowed, and even if it is also, the government here does not want to encourage such kind of parallel currencies because the government or the RBI is not able to regulate it, guys. Amitabh Bachchan and even me and my friends also, we have invested into Bitcoin and we have earned some amount, but whatever we have earned, we probably can keep it with us in terms of money, but we can't use Bitcoin to trade in anything. You can keep selling it in the stock market, guys. In the stock market, as long as people buy it from you, you can make a profit on trading in Bitcoins, but you cannot buy anything using a Bitcoin. Are we able to understand? Yes, you can convert Bitcoin into a liquid cash provided there is someone to buy it from you. Government will not give it to you. Neither will if you go take 3-4 Bitcoins and show it to the... See guys, Bitcoins are codes. If you write a set of codes and go and give it to the RBI tomorrow, they will throw it at your face. They will not give you any money back. Yes, as far as this budget has come in, if you encash your Bitcoins, you will end up paying tax. Moving on, guys, the government will take action against their use in illegal activities is what they have said. The next important thing is the 3 public sector insurance companies, very important. National Insurance Company, United India Insurance Company and Oriental India Insurance Company will be merged into a single insurance entity, and later its shares will be listed, meaning that they will go together as an IPO. They'll first be combined together. I think because they are not able to make enough money as they are, and they're not able to raise enough money, they will be combined together and they will be listed in the stock exchange. Please understand, remember the 3 companies, that is National Insurance Company, United India Insurance Assurance Company, Oriental India Insurance Company. Please remember these names, guys, it's very important. Moving on to the next one, guys. These are things you have to remember. In terms of budget in the public finance, the direct taxes, the first biggest tax, that is a corporate or the corporation tax that companies pay. The next highest tax is the income tax paid by individuals. And the next one is securities transaction tax. That means if you are trading in the stock market, if you're buying and selling shares, for every sale that you make, there's a small tax that is included. It's a very, very small amount. This is not your capital gains tax. Please don't confuse it. First one is the corporation or the corporate tax paid by the companies. The next one is the individual income tax paid by individuals based on their income, direct tax. And the next one is securities transaction tax. LTCG is not inside this, guys. We will discuss that separately. Indirect taxes. In indirect taxes, the highest is CGST. Then it is a union excise, customs, GST compensation cess, and then IGST. This is the order. CGST and SGST are same, so then they have not mentioned it separately. Okay, please understand that certain items still STT is securities transaction tax. In terms of indirection, STT is very simple, guys. Whenever I buy the share of Infosys, let me say I bought 100 shares for 1000 rupees. I have to pay a very small 0.05 or 0.5% of each of the shares that I bought, equivalent money, 0.05% of 0.5% I have to pay as tax. Transact money between countries, I am not able to understand what specifically you are asking. If someone is an NRI and he's sending money from abroad, he doesn't have to pay tax on it. But because of the fact that a lot of people are passing on illegal money to countries like Mauritius and sending it back to India, there is something called as a double tax avoidance agreement, which will be passed by different countries with India to avoid all those black monies coming in. If your profits are more than 1 lakh, then only you pay tax. Puneet, please understand that this is with respect to long-term capital gains tax. Does Western Union transfer require tax? If the money is coming in, they will take a service charge from you. There is no tax on it. They will take a service charge from you. Right? The exchange rate and services tax charge is what they will take from you. Moving on quickly, guys. CGST is a central GST. There's something called SGST as a state GST, and there's also something called integrated GST. Integrated GST is when you move goods and services between two states. TDS, please understand, is for income tax. Please don't confuse it with respect to buying something. When you buy something, it is an indirect tax. TDS is a tax deduction at source, which is an indirect tax. Right? Moving on, guys. The next one is subsidies. In subsidies, the highest subsidy is given for food. Next one is for fertilizer. Then the next one is LPG, kerosene. And major subsidies come up to at least 1.4% of the GDP. Now, I quickly want you to listen to me clearly what GDP means. Please listen to me very quickly what GDP means. Right? GDP means gross domestic product. Gross domestic product. What does it mean? Final value of all the goods and services sold inside India. Right? Let's not go into details. Like I said, if you have doubts on the details of GDP, we can either do it on a separate session or you can ask me one-to-one. But GDP is finally whatever is made, you take the expenditure. Whatever is sold, you take the value of that. you combine it and finally understand how much money has been generated by selling things inside India. Right? Even if a foreign company sells something inside India, it will be calculated under the GDP of the particular country. Right? We will discuss GDP in detail, but please understand it is the value of all the goods and services sold inside the country. Money coming from abroad by NRIs will not be considered in that. Do you have an understanding, guys? Quickly type a Y. Can we have a Y, guys, if you have understood? Beautifully done. Thank you so much. So now we're moving on to salaries. President's salary has been increased to 5 lakhs. The next one is Vice President's salary 4 lakhs, and each of the governors' salaries is 3.5 lakhs. MP salaries revised with inflation every 5 years. It is not, as of now, I think MP means that includes the Prime Minister and the Cabinet Ministers as well. Alright, so it is getting revised every 5 years. But the salaries of the President, Vice President and Governors who are not MPs. They are not MPs, therefore their salary has to be decided in the budget. Moving on. Deficit targets, please look at it, guys. The revenue deficit target for 2018-19 is 2.2%. Fiscal deficit is target is 3.3, but actually what they've achieved is 3.5. Primary deficit is 0.3 of the GDP. All these percentages are taken as a percentage of the GDP. Please understand. Right? The important thing to understand is debt to GDP is 40%. Meaning, please understand, to create 1 unit of GDP, how much money has been borrowed from somewhere else. Let's say I have total GDP of India is 100 rupees. To create that 100 rupees of GDP, how much of the money used is through debt? That means if it is 40%, means only 60% of the money is coming from what we have made. The remaining 40% or 40 rupees is actually from where? It is from borrowings. We compare everything to GDP to understand. I agree that we are developing, we have got so much money and we are getting GDP is basically saying how much our economy is growing. But what part of that is funded by our own money versus what part of that is funded by somebody else's money? That's why we compare things to GDP. Are we able to understand, guys? Quickly key in a Y. Moving on to the next one, guys. We're talking about disinvestment targets. Disinvestment means very simple. I pull out my money from somewhere and I invest it somewhere else. Disinvestment means I pull out my money from somewhere. So they're saying a disinvestment target is 80 crore. Last year it was 72,500 crores. But now they're saying that it will be 80,000 crores. It means that they're saying they will pull out money from industries or places that they have invested and which are successful, and they will push it to other places, and they've also increased the target from 72,500 crore to 80,000 crores. Yes, GDP is taken because you kind of understand what is actually happening in the country. What comes in from outside is a different thing, but we try to understand what is actually happening inside the country. That's why we take GDP majorly. Alright, ETF is exchange traded funds. Please understand, ETF is exchange traded fund. We will discuss that on a separate day, but it briefly means this, guys. Exchange traded fund means I have something like a mutual fund which can be traded on a stock exchange. Right? Buying and selling of my, imagine mutual. Are we back, guys? Are we okay now? Can we quickly check if we are back now? A quick yes, a Y, quickly to key in a Y. Exchange traded funds, yes guys, exchange traded funds is as simple as this. You can trade your mutual funds on a stock exchange, so it is easy to buy and sell them. At the same time, it gives you the security. That means it is not so much prone to demand and supply. Stock exchanges in terms of shares of a company are always prone to demand and supply, but this is not prone to demand and supply so much. At the same time, it is easy to buy and sell them, because normally the mutual funds that you buy, you have a 5-in lock-in period as there, and you are not able to buy or sell these things. We will discuss Nifty, Sensex, BSE and NSE on a separate note, Anna. Right, are we back guys? I'm thinking we are able to hear now. One more thing that you will understand, Air India is scheduled to be privatized, mainly because people in the government for over a couple of years, they have not been able to make any profits. So they have decided that, chalo, Air India ko privatize karte hain. Is it okay now guys? Are we still getting it as offline? Stock exchanges and how it works guys, we'll discuss on a separate note, because we will run out of time. We have another 10 slides to complete. Quickly refresh guys, quickly refresh. Regarding Air India, kuch bhi nahi yaar, because the government has failed to make profits in the past so many years. We have just decided that the government decided, Arun Jaitley and Modi decided, chalo abhi isko privatize karte hain. Because private jets are making more money than Air India in itself. कोई कंपटीशन नहीं है, गवर्नमेंट ऑफिस जैसे हैं. Air India debts will be covered by some rich guy who is willing to buy any of these rich guys in India, any of these companies who want to buy the Air India will buy it along with its debts. They will pump in money with the very sole motive that they will revive the whole thing and make profits out of it. Please understand guys, don't think that, acha, why would somebody invest into something which has got no profits? It's very simple. People have hope in it and they invest their extra money into it, saying that we will revive it and we will make profits in the long term. Government kitne baar bailout karoge bhai? Because government has to bail out banks, government has to bail out Vijay Mallya, government has to bail out everyone. Yaar, government ek hi to hai. Alright, coming back guys, coming back. Let's quickly look at tax buoyancy. Tax buoyancy, I want you to realize and hear very clearly. Let's say I have had a particular amount of GDP. I need to know how much of tax did I generate in the process of that. Right? Let me say, for example, as a percentage of my economy, 9% is my GDP. If I have collected 45% of that as my tax, then it becomes 45 divided by 9, 5 is my tax buoyancy. Once again, tax buoyancy means tax collected divided by GDP as a percentage. So if tax collected is 45% of GDP and GDP is 9% of total economy, so 45 divided by 9 is equal to 5. Let's say some kind of a big financial crisis happened. The GDP went down, let's say from 9 it went down to 6. And let's say people are like, Abhi, we cannot pay 45% tax, we will pay only 18% tax. So total tax collected is only 18% of the GDP. Right? So what's going to happen now? 18 divided by how much? 6. Now the new tax buoyancy will be 3. Eventually, let's say another crisis again happens and the GDP comes down again from how much? From 6 it comes to 4, and the tax collected comes in from 18 to let's say 8, then it will become how much, guys? How much will the tax divided by GDP, which is a tax buoyancy, be equal to? Quickly key in the answers. Beautifully done, beautifully done. So tax buoyancy tells you how much of the money that the government gets from GDP or creates through GDP is it able to collect as tax. And in 2007-8, before the global financial crisis, P. Chidambaram said that he was the happiest finance minister ever. Why? Because he was able to collect a lot of money as taxes. So they will not increase the tax rate, but as GDP increases, what will happen? More people will become rich, means more people will come under the taxable bracket, therefore more people will start paying tax. Right? That is why the tax buoyancy will increase as the GDP increases. We will not increase the tax rate, but the number of people paying the tax will increase. That is tax buoyancy. Please understand this particular thing that we have discussed. And into moving on, guys, on number of tax filers increase through compliance behavior is not appreciative. Exactly. So compliance behavior means you have to pay tax, or else, you know what, I will take it from you. I am a person who pays GST, guys, and because I was about 80 days to pay GST late, I didn't have any GST to pay. It was only 0. But Modi's particular GST website took 4,000 to 5,000 rupees from me just as fine. It's very simple for Modi. Either you pay me tax or I'll rip your life out. Right? So that is why they say number of tax filers have increased, but the compliance behavior is not very appreciative. That means people are not very happy about the fact that you're forcing me to pay taxes. But whatever said and done, Modi is like your school teacher, class teacher jaise. Karo ya maro types. Right? Now, non-salaried professionals, they are also saying that are hardly paying any income tax. In what range? In 7,000 to 35,000 ka range, they are showing all sorts of deductions and they are not paying any tax, is what has been observed. Also, for this year, income tax slabs have not been changed. That means the normal slab of 5%, 10%, 20% and then 30% is what is there. The only thing that has changed is that 40,000 rupees standard deduction. That means in addition to what was being exempt from tax, there was a 32,000 something, small 32,600 or something, or 34,000, sorry, 34,600 rupees, which was exempt as TA, DA allowance. The HRA and TA travel allowance was exempt. Now that has been increased to 40k. That means extra 6,000 rupees people don't have to pay tax for. Right? But again, what has happened is because the standard deduction of 40,000 rupees has been removed, the transport and medical exemptions have been cut completely. Guys, we will go for another 20 minutes to half an hour. Are we okay with this? We'll quickly finish it off. What do you say? Are we good for 20 minutes to half an hour? Quickly key in a why. I'm sorry for dragging it, guys. Like I said, it's economics, so it takes some time. I'm hoping I can keep your interest and make sure you guys can stay. I will make sure we end up as soon as possible. Right? I'm moving on to the next slide now. Right? There you go. You have your for elderly people, no income tax or tax deduction at source on interest income. That means, let me say, I had invested 50,000 rupees as share market, in the share market or maybe as fixed deposit. Whatever interest I get on it, I don't have to pay income tax or TDS. Right? Earlier it was 10,000 rupees which was exempt. Now up to 50,000 rupees, whatever I invest, right? So not 50,000 rupees I invest, but up to 50,000 rupees the interest income, that will not be taxed. Beyond 50,000 rupees, if I earn interest income, what happens? I will be asked to pay tax. And also extra 50,000 up to 50,000 deduction is there for health insurance premium. Guys, these numbers are important because they will ask you. So normal health insurance premium up to 50k deduction you have, and for critical illnesses you can spend up to 1 lakh, it is tax exempt. TDS is tax deduction at source. Right, they also have introduced something called as Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana. Vaya Vandana Yojana is very simple, guys. 8% return for up to 15 lakhs till March 2020. Yes, Megha, don't worry. We will have this important slide sent in. The others, please continue. So, Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana, 8% return for up to 15 lakhs till March 2020. Earlier it was only to 7.5 lakhs you could get this return, but now they have doubled it to 15 lakhs. Then the next thing is, guys, 25% corporation tax for companies with a turnover up to 250 crores. Earlier, companies with turnover of only 50 crores had to pay 25%. The remaining people had to pay 30%. But the government is actually asking people to do what? The government is actually asking people that please come and file your taxes. Instead of 30, you only have to pay 25% even though your turnover is 250 crores. This is a very nice way of the government first providing an incentive for people to pay taxes before they force it upon you, like they did in the case of GST in terms of income declaration scheme, and finally the drastic step of demonetization. So as of now, up to 250 crores if you have money as a turnover, guys, this is not profit, it is turnover. Turnover means revenue. You have to pay only 25% as corporation tax. Next one, guys. We'll move on quickly. Another couple of slides more. We'll move up quickly. Right. So the next one is that the cess on income tax and corporation taxes. So now what is happening, guys? Please understand just that 4% extra tax, 4% extra cess. Cess means it is a tax levied for a particular reason. So in this case, it is for primary education, secondary education, and health. Totally together, it is an extra 4% that you will have to pay. Now this is not 4% of your income. It is a 4% of the tax that you're already paying. So cess or a surcharge is a tax on tax. Please remember that. And cess is generally taken for a particular reason. Unlike the, guys, I would suggest that you remember these numbers, 4%. Now, the next thing to understand is, in case of securities means trading of stocks, debts, or whatever it is, 15% is your short-term capital gains tax. 15%. Right? 15% is the short-term capital gains tax. And they have introduced a new thing of 10% long-term capital gains tax. That means if your capital gains after a year, let's say you have kept a stock for a year and you sell it and then you get a profit of more than 1 lakh, then you have to pay long-term capital gains tax. Right? I would suggest to students, Megha, that you stay through the session if you can, because the slides, even if you read it on your own, it will be difficult for you to get the complete understanding. Anyways, moving on, guys. Gift City. Please understand what is Gift City. Gift City is an international IFSC. Guys, please remember this. Long term as in, guys, more than 1 year. I'm talking about more than 1 year. Long term as in more than 1 year. Coming back, IFSC is not the IFSC code that your banks have. It is different. This is, IFSC means International Financial Services Center. International Financial Services Center. Every country has one, which helps in transacting between all your FDIs, FPIs and all coming through this IFSC. There is something called as a Gift City, that is Gujarat Investment and Fintech. Right? Gujarat International Fintech City is what it is. Gift City, and IFSC is International Financial Services Center. Something like a place where all the investments come in and gets routed out to different sectors of the economy. Right? Certain securities in that particular gift city, they said that certain securities of certain companies, because the government wants to promote investment into different sectors, certain securities have been removed from capital gains tax. Yeah, something like SEZ, not exactly SEZ, but something like SEZ, Ipshad. And they also said that there should be a regulator for this gift city, because people will be randomly investing their money. You don't know who's putting what. Illegal money, Dawood Ibrahim ke paise aa rahe hai ki Mauritius se paise aa rahe hai, you have no idea. So which is why you need to have a regulator, and a new regulator will be there. They have not decided yet, and it will be independent new regulator for the gift city. Moving on. To curb black monies, trusts cannot pay more than 10k in cash. Trusts is a place where people invest all their black money in. Right? Black money trusts cannot pay more than 10k in cash. Stricter rules have been also provided for tedious compliance. That means if you do not comply by the laws I told you guys, just because I became 80 days late, Mr. Modi took 4,000 rupees from me just as fine. Right? Every entity doing a transaction of 2.5 lakhs or more must get a PAN card inclusive of its office bearers. That means you cannot say, Acha, my company is doing this, I have a PAN card, and then you divert your funds through your office bearers. No. Everybody, including your office bearers, that means chairman, everybody, the MD, the CEO, everyone should get a PAN card. Right? And farmers, farm produce offers that they have, what are they telling guys? 100% deduction is there for the next 5 years. That means on farm produce, whatever is there, the tax reduction will be very less. Also important is the Operation Greens. Operation Greens is very important, guys. We will discuss in detail in the next couple of slides. Operation Greens and Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. It is for agro-marine processing. Mainly they want people to invest also into fisheries and animal husbandry, not just into normal crops. And also they want people to put their money into different ways of irrigation. So the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana is mainly for agro-marine processing. Okay. The next last thing is that you reduce the tax terrorism. That means what are you doing? Tax terrorism means what? You try to avoid taxes when and wherever you can. Please understand, guys. Excuse me. If you have watched Hindi movies, you will see a lot of the mafia people and everyone, all the big shots go to Mauritius, Singapore, Cyprus. This is not the joke. They show it to you because these are countries where people send out their black money and then it comes back as white money through investment inside India. So people won't pay tax in India also, and people won't pay tax in Mauritius also. The same money goes to Mauritius in the name of some company and comes back to India as maybe as an FDI. What happens in the process of which people don't pay taxes, and it is something called as a tax terrorism. Because if you do not pay tax, guys, please understand, after a point the country will run out of money. And that will be a very sorry state. Right? This is also with respect to products that come outside the country. Let's say when people bring things from abroad. Yes, it is through shell companies that they do it. Right? Even when people bring things from abroad, they pack it. My dad, so my folks are in Kuwait. Right? And when my dad comes from abroad, he tries to put things in an old package and say that, it is an old used one. In the process of which what is happening is he's trying to avoid the tax or the customs to be paid. In that case, what happens? If he successfully does that, eventually what is going to happen is all forms of such kind of tax will come off, and eventually people will not have money because the government will run out of tax revenue receipts. Right? So they want to reduce tax terrorism. The Customs Act and all is not important. Just remember what you mean by tax terrorism. Coming back, guys, let's quickly look at what are shell companies. Guys, shell or shelf companies means very simple. They will have a company registered just for the sake of it. Money will be going into the company, but actually does not do any business. It is just one more. It's like having multiple PAN cards. Only one person and one PAN card is actually active. The remaining are used just to deposit money to show that you do not come under the bracket of taxes. And because you are not coming under the bracket of taxes, what happens is that you end up not paying tax, but actually you have split the money across various companies. If it was only your company, you would have ended up paying tax, but because you are going through different sets of channels, in the end, let's say you have 10 lakh rupees salary, you have to pay 30% income tax. Instead, what do? You take the 10 lakh rupees and you divide it into 3 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 3 lakhs and put it in your father's, mother's and sister's account. Eventually, you become tax exempt. Same thing if you do with companies is what you call as shell companies. Right? Coming back again, guys, balance of payment and international trade. One is the gold monetization schemes and outward FDI to be reformed. Please understand, Modi had brought in this very fancy scheme where he told people, why don't you invest your gold and get money for it? Let the gold rotate in the system. What he fails to understand is Indian people will save up as much as gold in their houses even if they are dying out of poverty. Right? Especially if there's a girl child in their house and they have to get her married, then that's it. They will save as much as gold. People will not try to trade their gold and get money. Right? Shell companies are legal because they are not doing anything wrong. But at the moment I find out that the money is being siphoned off into their this one, then they become liable. Because they are not, then they will find out that, you know, your money has been pushed across different avenues. But ideally, shell companies are legal because they are just like any other companies. Are they ethical? No, they are not. And when they suddenly start avoiding taxes, what happens is they have a tax liability. They are not illegal in itself. Right? So gold monetization scheme means what, guys? Modi tells you to take all your gold, deposit with us, and then you take the money, and when you require, we will give it back to you. Right? But what will they want to do? They would want to rotate that gold all around India and among people so that people who want can use it as and when they please. Now the understanding is very simple, guys. One thing, people don't trust anybody after the Nirav Modi incidents. The second thing is gold is something people keep as an investment forever. They never give it out unless it is to their own children. Right? So this might not be such a great move, but still the government is trying to get people or encourage people to bring out their gold which they have kept with themselves so that it does not have to import new gold into the country. Alright, like we already discussed, GIFT City IFSC will have a separate regulator. Moving on, according to the economic survey, what is it saying? International risks to Indian economy are the following. What is it? One is the war in the Korean Peninsula. Right? Donald Trump keeps irritating our, I can't get his name, Mr. Kim. Right? That's what his name is, North Korean Prime President. What happens is the guy is also pretty hot-headed. So if there's a conflict between both of them, what happens is eventually we also suffer in terms of trade and other things because they are also situated in the Southeast Asian or Asian side. The next thing is the political unrest in Middle East. One is GCC boycotting Qatar. Right? The Chinese slowdown, OPEC, Russia, oil cuts. Yes, Kim Jong, the guy is, yes, that's the name. I just happen to forget it. Right? And the next problem is that advanced economies are recovering and coming out of zero interest rate regimes. Consequently, flight of capital could happen. That means these guys, advanced economies, they have actually recovered from whatever the global financial crisis was. Right, out of zero interest regimes, they are recovering and coming out of it, which means that they will have more and more money to do what? To invest into other countries. Right, the moment people have more money in those advanced economies, they will invest into countries like India, which can come up in the form of FDI, FPI or FII. Right, moving on, guys, we'll go to agriculture. Important. Very important is that 11 lakhs is the loan target that they want to give, and they want to promote institutional farm credit. Institutional farm credit means they want people to go to banks and take loans, not go to all these chit funds because they charge very high interest rates. So they want to increase the number of people who go to banks and get loans. That is called as institutional farm credit. The ones that happens with the blade companies or the chit funds and people who local borrowing people and local money lenders is that it is called as non-institutional farm credit. Yes, you will have to note this down, guys. As much as possible, please note this down. There will be a test on this also, especially in terms of the numbers. Okay, moving on. Next, guys, they want to bring in 2x farm income by 2022. That is not important. The next one is important, guys. MSP, minimum support price. That means the farmers want the government to at least hit one minimum price at which they can sell their goods. If not, because of lack of demand or because of the cartel that is formed, what happens is the middlemen and the mandis will pay them very less, which is sometimes below their production cost, to buy goods from them. In such returns, what happens? The farmer does not get any money for his survival and eventually has to commit suicide. So now they have said that whatever is your production cost, 50% more of that is what we will pay as MSP. And this is called as, please remember, this is called as Swaminathan Formula. Swaminathan Formula because it was introduced by MS Swaminathan. Please take it down. 1.5% times of the production cost being MSP is called as Swaminathan Formula. The only problem is that the government of India for this time's budget, Arun Jaitley did not specifically mention what will be the production cost. He only told that we will take it as 1.5% time, 1.5 times or 150 times or 50% more, but he never told us what is the exact point at which he will do it. Right? Even they have said, so what they have done is that they have asked the Commission for Agricultural and Costs and Prices. They have asked these people, because they are the ones who determine how the production cost is calculated. They have asked them to actually go back and find out and come back, but then they have proposed 3 different formulas. Let's see what the government takes up. Okay. FCI is Food Corporation of India. Food Corporation of India is also who deals with the prices of MSPs, because they are the ones who eventually buy these food grains from the people, right? So in the meanwhile, let's look at what is the three types of formula that CACP. CACP is what, guys? Please go back. It's CACP is Commission for Agricultural Cost and Prices. Agricultural costs and prices. Right? So having said that, CACP, the 3 different forms are, guys, A2, A2 plus FL and C2. A2, A2 plus FL and C2. A2 covers all input expenses incurred by the farmers on seeds, fertilizers, labor, power supply and water. But please understand, that is not the only income that he goes through. Also, you have to take the family labor. Just because I am working in my field, it's not like there is no cost to that, isn't it? Like how when your mom works in the kitchen, you don't put a price to it. But actually, if there was a maid working, she would have actually charged some money. Similarly, when the farmer works in the farm, that also has to be considered as a cost. So A2 plus FL is your seeds, fertilizer, labor, power supply and water. And in addition to that, what is also there? The imputed value of family labor. Now, what the CACP tells us, you should actually not even take A2 on A2 plus FL, rather go for C2. Which also, with respect to all these above things, will feature rent of the land and interest that they have to pay on their owned land and fixed capital assets. Because all of these are taken by farmers taking loans. So all the interest that they incur, that they have to pay, the loan that they have to repay back, all these things have to be included, which is in C2. The government has not specified as of now, but the earlier government, the UPA government, had gone only for A2. They had not gone for A2 plus FL or C2. Are we clear, guys? Any more repetitions required on this? Can we quickly say yes if you are clear with this? Whatever doubts that you have, guys, please make sure you write it down on the side. We can discuss it one-to-one or after the session. Can I quickly get a yes on if you have understood A2, A2 plus FL and C2? Have you understood Swaminathan Formula? Have you understood CACP? I'm waiting for the others to respond. Yes, Vedashri. A2 plus FL means your basic cost that you have plus the imputed value of family labor. Meaning if you work in your farm and you might think, no, it's okay, it is my farm, so I will not put a price to my effort. Your effort also has to be calculated as a price. So what will happen? Your normal price on seeds, fertilizers, labor, power supply and water, plus the amount of effort that you put in or your family puts in, that also has to be calculated as a cost. CACP is Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices. They are the body which decides how to calculate the production cost and therefore the MSP. I think we'll do up till slide number 20. We are on 19, guys. We'll go to slide number 20. There are another 15 more slides, I think, which we will move to the next day, because I think a lot of you guys have already lost it, right? You guys would want to have some dinner. So I will go through one more slide and then I will continue the session on the following day. Are we good with that? Quickly give me a yes, guys. Quickly give me a yes. Beautiful. So then let's look at the last slide. Let's look at this last slide. People who have doubts, please key it down. Write it down with you. We will discuss it one to one till you understand. Yes, Deepa, family labor has not been included in GDP. What the government is saying is you should include the family labor in GDP. That's what they're saying. Alright, moving to the next slide. Rural development. For total rural infra expenditure, 14 lakh crores has been put up for rural development. This is in terms of roads, in terms of water supply, in terms of sanitation, in terms of Swachh Bharat, in terms of all these things. Right? So then the first thing is that from the economic survey, what they have understood is that for economic and social development, people need to be moved out of farms and villages. Please understand. Why? Because even now in India, though it is the highest employment generator, the kind of farming that we do, the kind of machinery that we use are still outdated. So unless we bring in modern methods of farming, we should move out of the villages and farms, and only then can there be a socio-economic development. The next thing is that extreme weather conditions affect the agroclimate, and the impact is twice on the unirrigated farms than the irrigated farms. So they say extreme weather is also a reason why the farms don't give good produce. It's not that our farmers are not using the state-of-art goods. The next thing is that with higher temperature and shorter rainfall, income fall has been so and so. That is how much income has fallen from 15 to 18. Don't see it as income. Income has fallen from 15 to 18% and in the irrigated areas, and from 20 to 25% in the unirrigated areas. So what they're saying is that just like GST, we need to have cooperative federalism against agricultural distress. That means just like how GST is put all across India, cooperative federalism means all states should combine together, should cooperate, and then make sure what happens, our agricultural distress is over. Not that only states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, these people work together and we just sit aside. All the states should work together in such a way that the modern methods of farming, water, all these resources are equally distributed, and like GST, a unified approach is given towards agriculture. Failing which, what will happen is that we will not be able to carry out our proper agriculture. Are we able to understand, guys? I think the remaining part of which what we will do is we will move on to the next day. Right? We will let you know when the next session will be, but it will be very soon. Brace yourself up. Alright? Whatever doubts you have till now, please make sure you ask it to me. I will key in my phone number. I will key in my email ID. Right? So what you guys will do is you will ask me doubts till you understand. It's a very simple concept. Correct? Only then, guys, this I'm telling you that one session each day this way, we'll be able to set up the whole GK process and you will get your 50 on 50 or at least 40 on 50. So I think we'll call it a day for now. Right? I will key in my email ID and my phone number. There you go. You can text me on WhatsApp with only your doubts. Please don't tell me hi sir, good morning sir. Don't send me a flower with good morning on it. My mornings are always good, right? So please don't have elaborate lengthy messages being sent. Only your doubts with your name will be fine. It's on the chat now. I'll put it on the slide as well. Are we able to see this, guys? Yes, I'll share the pictures, guys. Don't worry, I'll share the pictures. Any doubts you have with respect to your economics, trust me, we can do a better session than what you guys had in school. So don't worry, you can ask me any doubts. This is my phone number. I hope you guys clear CLAT with flying colors. Let's do this preparation for the next 40 days. And trust me, guys, you will do much better. Good sources for additional reading. Now, the information I've picked up is from multiple sources. I suggest that if it's possible, please make sure you continue to attend the sessions. In the meanwhile, if you want GK, I would always suggest you can go to this website called as insightsonindia.com, which is also good, but I suggest you sit through the GK sessions. It will be more than enough for you guys. Whatever we have discussed as of now in terms of the numbers, I will discuss more and more numbers as to a scheme, how many people is it targeting and all those. I will send out some questions as well. Thank you, Anil sir. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you guys for sitting through this much. I know most of you have finished your board exams only today. I'm sorry for putting you through too much of a lengthy class. I hope I was not boring. We will try to include a little more lightness and little more jokes in the session. And thank you so much, guys. Best website know about economics, यार ऐसा कोई एक जगह नहीं है. There's no one place. I have also done reading at least through about 50 to 100 books, is why this has come up. Please give your feedback for the session, guys. That will be really great. Please give your feedback on the comments of the video. On the comments of the video, guys, not on the message. No, it's not on economics, guys. I specialize in current affairs in all forms, polity, Indian constitution, history, geography, whatever topic you want, we can discuss. And I specialize this for south of India. Generally, I take sessions, but I also am okay to take sessions for anybody and anywhere. Thank you so much, guys. Schedule will come to you guys on your messages. Don't worry. Yes, this session will be available for reference in the future. Don't worry. I'll tell you more and more interesting stuff. Trust me, we will not make it boring. We'll have 100,000 things coming into you guys. And we'll make sure your GK is the most interesting section you study. Yes, this was the first session. Ipshit, this was the first session, da. Cheers, Anushka. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sahana Saloni. Attendance, please. I want center wise. Please mention center wise to Anil sir right away. Your centers, each of your centers once again. Only the centers. And also, if you have any negative feedbacks in terms of anything, I don't want just the good feedbacks, guys. You can put up any negative feedback that you want. If you think that it is not good enough that the session was happening, something was fast, something was slow, information was not given to you in time, whatever you want, you can tell me. We're always open to correction, and this is not me telling you just like your school teachers. Don't worry. On a lighter note, yeah. Okay, don't worry. But we will help you with the GK, and yeah, that's about it. Yes, boss. Ipsha, don't worry. Next time we'll get a better internet connection. Sorry for the trouble. Thank you so much. I think I will sign off now, guys. I'll close this up. Thank you for your time. Yes, I will take static GK as well. No, ma'am. I am encyclopedia for that matter. I discuss all topics. There's no arrogance here. It's a very humble thing, but yeah, that's what I do. I specifically teach economics and polity for civil services. Anna, I'm sorry for the slides being moved a little fast. Guys. Yes. In 2 minutes, doing it in 2 minutes. Sorry, was there any sound or any volume?